She gave him her heart, and he handed it to someone else. But what if betrayal wasn't the end, but the beginning of something powerful? This isn't just a story of heartbreak, it's the story of a woman who turned pain into purpose and built an empire from the ashes of her trust. You won't believe how far she rises. Before we continue, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe for more stories like this. Madeline's life felt like a dream she never wanted to wake up from. She was 26, living in a cozy 2-bedroom apartment in Portland, working as a children's book illustrator. Her days were spent sketching tiny dragons and magical forests, and her evenings were filled with laughter, soft music, and the warmth of a man she believed would be her forever. That man was Ethan Carter. Ethan was gentle, tall, and had kind, honey-brown eyes that always seemed to be looking right into her soul. They had met at a mutual friend's engagement party 3 years ago. He had spilled red wine on her cream blouse and offered to buy her a new one. She had laughed, and he had fallen in love with that sound. Or so he told her. "I think your laugh saved me that day," Ethan often said, brushing a stray curl behind her ear. "Before you, my life was just grey." Madeline believed him. Every morning, he brought her coffee just the way she liked it, 2 sugars, no cream. Every weekend, they took long walks in Forest Park, talking about their dreams. He wanted to open his own architecture firm. She wanted to publish her own picture books. They shared everything, even her best friend, Ava. Ava had been Madeline's best friend since they were 11. They grew up in the same neighborhood, shared clothes, secrets, heartbreaks, and dreams. Ava had a sharp tongue and an even sharper sense of humor. She was the kind of woman who walked into a room and made everyone notice her, confident, striking, with piercing green eyes and shoulder-length auburn hair. Madeline had never felt threatened by her. Ava had always been like a sister. Ethan and Ava got along easily. Too easily, in hindsight. But back then, Madeline didn't notice anything wrong. In fact, she felt lucky. She thought, I have the best of both worlds, my best friend and my boyfriend, and they actually like each other. She remembered one night in particular, pizza night. Ethan was in the kitchen, flipping the dough like he was some kind of show-off chef. Ava was on the couch, scrolling through her phone, snorting at memes. Madeline sat cross-legged on the carpet, sipping wine. "This is nice," she said dreamily. Ava smiled without looking up. "Yeah, we're like an odd little family." Ethan chimed in from the kitchen. "Best family I've ever had." Madeline's heart felt full. She didn't know that would be one of the last nights she ever felt that way. Another memory, the 3 of them went to a weekend cabin trip in the mountains. Madeline had the flu, though, and spent most of the time in bed while Ethan and Ava went hiking without her. At the time, she didn't think it was strange. She remembered Ethan kissing her forehead and saying, "We'll just be gone for an hour, babe. Get some rest, okay? Don't you dare go fall off a cliff without me," she joked. "I'll make sure he doesn't," Ava said with a wink, tightening her boots. They returned 4 hours later. Ethan said they lost track of time. Ava said she didn't even notice the sun setting. Madeline brushed it off. She told herself, they wouldn't. They couldn't. Not them. Not to me. Looking back, the signs had always been there. But love makes you blind. And trust makes you naive. The change started small. Almost invisible. First, it was Ethan's phone. He had never been secretive before. But suddenly, he started flipping its screen down when they were together. When it buzzed, he'd check it quickly, then turn it off. One night, as they lay in bed, she asked gently, "Who's texting you so late?" He hesitated. "Work stuff. You know how it is." But his voice was off. Tight. Controlled. Madeline didn't push. She told herself, he's probably stressed about the Henderson project. Ethan had been working long hours lately. She wanted to believe it was just that. But then there was Ava. Ava, who used to call her every day. Who used to show up with chocolate ice cream and cheesy movies. Who now seemed distant. Texts were left unanswered. Calls went straight to voicemail. When they did speak, Ava seemed distracted, like her mind was somewhere else. One day, Madeline brought it up. "Are you okay?" she asked over the phone. Ava gave a short laugh. "Yeah, why wouldn't I be? You just feel far away lately." "I've just been busy, Mads. Work is killing me." Madeline nodded, even though Ava couldn't see her. "Okay," she said softly. "Just don't disappear on me, okay?" Ava didn't reply for a moment. Then she whispered, "I won't." But something in her tone felt like a lie. The next sign was the cancelled plans. Ethan started skipping their Friday date nights. He blamed work deadlines, traffic, headaches. One Friday, she made lasagna from scratch, his favorite. She lit candles. She even wore the red dress he said made her look like sin. He never showed up. At 10:30 p.m., he texted, "Sorry. Stuck with clients. Rain check." She stared at the message, her heart sinking. No call. No apology. Just cold words on a screen. Tears welled in her eyes, but she forced herself to eat the lasagna alone. Bite by bite. Chew by chew. The next morning, she decided to stop by his apartment. She told herself she just wanted to surprise him. Maybe he'd had a rough night. Maybe he'd be happy to see her. She knocked. No answer. She tried the spare key he'd given her months ago. The door opened. His apartment was quiet, clean, except for one thing. Ava's scarf. Bright yellow, hanging on the back of the couch. Madeline stared at it, her fingers going cold. Maybe she left it here a long time ago, she thought. But no. Ava hated yellow. She used to call it the ugly cousin of gold. Madeline's hands began to tremble. She didn't say anything that day. She didn't even ask. She just left. Later that week, she met up with Ava for coffee. She had to know. Ava looked beautiful, as always. Lip gloss shining. Hair freshly curled. "Where were you last Friday?" Madeline asked, trying to sound casual. Ava blinked. "Home." "Why?" Madeline held her gaze. "Not at Ethan's." Ava laughed. Too quickly. "Why would I be at Ethan's?" "I don't know," Madeline said quietly. "Maybe you left your yellow scarf there." Ava froze for a fraction of a second. Then smiled. "Oh, that old thing? I must have left it there months ago." "You hate yellow." Another pause. "I've changed," Ava said with a smirk. Madeline nodded slowly. "So have I." They didn't finish their coffee. From that day on, Madeline's chest felt heavy all the time. Like she was walking underwater, breathing through a straw. She wanted to believe it wasn't true. That she was being paranoid. That her mind was making things up. But her heart already knew. Something was happening. Something ugly. Something she wasn't ready to face. Still, she held on. Because when you love someone that deeply, your heart fights the truth with everything it has. You cling to the moments when they were kind. You replay their promises in your head. You try to forget the lies you see in their eyes. One evening, Ethan came home late again. He looked tired. Or guilty. Maybe both. Madeline was sitting on the couch, her arms folded. "Who is she?" she asked quietly. He blinked, surprised. "What?" "I'm not stupid, Ethan. I'm just asking for the truth. Please. Don't lie to me." His jaw tightened. He looked down at his hands. Then back at her. "There's no one else," he said. She stared at him. Then she said the words that broke her heart even as she said them. "Is it Ava?" Ethan's silence was louder than any answer he could give. And just like that, the fairy tale ended. Madeline didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just nodded. "Okay," she whispered. Ethan reached for her hand. It just happened. I didn't plan for it. Neither did she. Madeline pulled her hand away. You could have stopped it, she said softly. Both of you. You chose not to. He opened his mouth to speak, but she stood up. I need you to go. Madeline. Now. She stood tall, even though her legs were shaking. As he left, she felt something inside her crack. Not shatter, just crack. But she knew. The shatter was coming. And after that, the rebuilding. Madeline didn't remember much of the night Ethan left. She remembered the door closing. She remembered the silence afterward. She remembered how the room felt colder, emptier, even though nothing had changed except that he was gone. She sat on the couch for what felt like hours, staring at the wall. Her phone buzzed once. It was a message from Ava. I'm sorry. I didn't want it to happen like this. Madeline dropped the phone like it burned her. Like this? She wanted to scream. What did you think was going to happen, Ava? A fairy tale? She didn't reply. She turned off her phone and sat in the dark. For 2 days, she didn't leave the apartment. She didn't shower. She didn't eat. She barely drank water. The lasagna from last week was still in the fridge, untouched. She opened it, stared at the dried cheese, then threw it all in the trash. Everything reminded her of them. The wine glasses they'd used on movie nights. The blanket that still smelled like Ethan. The framed photo of the three of them on her bookshelf, Ethan in the middle, Ava on one side, Madeline on the other. Smiling. Happy. Fake. She smashed it. The sound of breaking glass was the only satisfying thing she'd heard in days. That night, she finally cried. Not the soft kind. Not the pretty kind. The ugly, gasping, choking sobs that made her body ache. She cried on the kitchen floor until she was hoarse. Her chest felt like it was collapsing. She whispered to no one, "Why wasn't I enough?" 3 days later, her sister Emily came over. "Madeline, open the door," she called, knocking hard. "I know you're in there." Madeline didn't move. She was wrapped in a blanket on the floor. Eventually, Emily let herself in with the spare key. "Oh my God," she whispered when she saw the mess. She knelt down beside Madeline and touched her cheek. "Is this about Ethan?" she asked softly. Madeline didn't answer. Emily saw the broken photo frame, the half-eaten box of tissues, the red, swollen eyes. Her face tightened. What did he do? Madeline's voice cracked. He chose her. Emily froze. Who? Madeline closed her eyes. Ava. For a moment, Emily didn't speak. Then, in a low voice, she said, "I never liked that girl." That made Madeline almost laugh. Almost. Emily helped her up and sat her on the couch. "You're going to be okay," she said firmly. "You're allowed to fall apart. But you're not going to stay like this. Not over them." Madeline didn't believe her. But she wanted to. Over the next few days, she tried to function. She started eating small meals again. She went outside for fresh air. She even answered a work email. But everything still hurt. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw them. Kissing. Touching. Lying. She tried to imagine how long it had been going on. Was it while she was sick in the cabin? Was it before that? Had they laughed about her behind her back? Did they fall in love while pretending to love her? The questions wouldn't stop. She started writing in a journal, pouring out everything she didn't have the courage to say out loud. They didn't just betray me. They made me question myself. My worth. My judgment. My memories. I don't know who I hate more, her, for doing this, or me, for not seeing it. She began crying in smaller, quieter ways. In the shower. In the grocery store aisle. In traffic. Once, she sat on a bench and watched a couple hold hands and walk by. The woman looked up at the man like he hung the stars. Madeline looked away quickly. Her heart squeezed so tight it felt like it stopped beating for a second. 2 weeks passed. And then another. Madeline returned to work, but barely. She missed deadlines. She sat in meetings and didn't say a word. Her drawings became dull, lifeless. Her boss, Mr. Aldridge, called her into his office. "You okay, Maddie?" he asked gently. She nodded too fast. He looked at her with concern. "Your light's a little dim these days." "I'm just going through something," she said, avoiding eye contact. He sighed. "We all do. Take the time you need. But don't forget who you are." She forced a smile. But the truth was, she had forgotten. Who was she without Ethan? Without Ava? She didn't know anymore. One night, she came home to find a box on her doorstep. Inside were her things from Ethan's apartment. A hoodie. A book she had lent him. A mug with "Love You More" printed on it. There was a note. "I didn't want things to end this way. You'll always be special to me." She tore it up. Special? That's what you say to someone you leave behind? That night, she stared at her reflection in the mirror. Puffy eyes. Hollow cheeks. Lifeless hair. She whispered to herself, "This can't be the end of me." But part of her didn't believe that either. The next morning, she got out of bed and opened her laptop. She typed "how to start healing after betrayal" into Google. It felt pathetic. But it was something. She found a podcast. The Healing Diaries. The host, a woman named Sienna, spoke with warmth and honesty. She shared her own story, how her fiancé left her for her cousin, and how she had fallen apart. Madeline listened to 4 episodes in a row. She cried through most of them. And for the first time since the breakup, she didn't feel completely alone. The next day, she went to therapy. She sat in a small, sunlit office with a woman named Dr. Clark. She didn't say much in the first session. Just cried. But Dr. Clark didn't rush her. "Take your time," she said gently. "We'll build from here." And that phrase stuck with her. We'll build from here. 1 week later, Madeline took a walk to the bookstore she used to love. She hadn't gone in months. She picked up a journal with the words "Let It Hurt. Then Let It Go" on the cover. She bought it. And she started writing again. Every day. Some days, it was angry words. Some days, it was memories she missed. Some days, it was just one sentence, "I want to feel better." She began to breathe again. Not easily. Not freely. But she breathed. She went to yoga. She read books. She deleted Ethan's number. She unfollowed Ava. One night, while scrolling through her photos, she saw an old picture, her at 19, holding a paintbrush, grinning ear to ear, covered in color. No Ethan. No Ava. Just her. Her happiness. Her spark. She stared at it for a long time. Then whispered, "I'm going to find that girl again." And just like that, something shifted. Not healed. Not whole. But maybe, just maybe, ready to begin. Healing didn't come all at once. There was no magic morning where Madeline woke up smiling, no movie scene where she twirled in the rain and everything suddenly made sense. It came in moments, quiet, almost unnoticeable ones. Like the first morning she didn't cry brushing her teeth. The first time she went to the grocery store and didn't immediately think, "Ethan loved that cereal." The first time she saw a couple kissing at a cafe and didn't feel like throwing up. Healing crept in like sunlight through a curtain. Slow. Gentle. Warm. One evening, she opened her laptop and created a folder. Project Me. Inside it, she wrote a list. Go to therapy every week. Finish at least 1 sketch a day. Try something new each month. Don't check their socials. Start a podcast. That last one sat there for days, unconfirmed, uncertain. But the idea kept tugging at her. She had always loved storytelling. She was already journaling. And ever since finding the healing diaries, she couldn't stop thinking, what if someone out there needed to hear my story too? Madeline didn't want revenge anymore. She wanted purpose. So, one night, she took a leap. She recorded her first episode. Her voice shook as she spoke, but her heart beat stronger with every word. Hi. I'm Madeline Grace, she began. And 5 weeks ago, the two people I trusted most betrayed me. I was shattered. But I'm still here. And if you're here too, maybe we can heal together. She didn't expect anyone to listen. But people did. Dozens at first. Then hundreds. Emails started coming in from strangers. I thought I was alone until I heard your voice. Thank you for putting into words what I've been afraid to say. You reminded me that pain doesn't have to be permanent. Madeline read them all, eyes wet with tears. She wasn't just healing. She was helping others heal too. In therapy, Dr. Clark smiled at her progress. You're reconnecting with your identity, she said. The one that existed before them. Madeline nodded. Sometimes I still miss him. But I don't want him back. I just miss the girl who believed in love without fear. You can be her again, Dr. Clark said. But stronger. Wiser. Unapologetically you. She began sketching again, really sketching. Her illustrations became deeper. She poured emotion into her art, lonely trees, broken wings, girls with sad eyes and fierce hearts. Her editor loved them. These are the best pieces you've ever sent me, he said. Raw, real, vulnerable. She smiled. That's all I've got these days. What's real? She started taking long walks, listening to podcasts, and smiling at strangers. She bought herself fresh flowers every Sunday. She redecorated her apartment, new curtains, new bedsheets, new energy. She no longer checked Ethan's or Ava's profiles. She deleted their photos from her phone. Not in anger, not in pain, but in peace. Because they were no longer part of her future. One rainy afternoon, she saw a couple arguing at the park. The girl stormed off. The guy stood there, helpless. For a moment, Madeline felt a flicker of pity. Then she whispered to herself, I hope she chooses herself. And for the first time in months, she smiled without effort. Madeline changed. Not overnight, but piece by piece. She cut her hair. Not because of a breakup cliché, but because she wanted to feel light. She stood in front of the mirror and let the stylist snip away years of memories. Gone were the long curls Ethan used to wrap around his fingers. In their place, a fresh, chin-length bob that framed her face like a crown. She looked different. She looked powerful. The stylist gasped. Girl, you don't even need makeup. You look like a CEO. Madeline laughed. A real laugh. Good. I'm running my life now. She bought a bold red blazer and started posting pictures of herself again. Not for validation. For visibility. This is who I am now. Alive. Growing. Still soft, but not weak. She was invited to speak on a local women's panel after her podcast began trending. There, in front of a small crowd, she stood behind a mic and told her story. I was left. I was lied to. I was broken, she said. But I didn't stay broken. I chose to rebuild myself with truth. With tears. With love I gave back to me. The applause was thunderous. Someone in the back stood up and yelled, Go, Queen! Madeline flushed, laughing, overwhelmed. Later that night, someone messaged her. I was going to give up on myself tonight. Then I heard you speak. Thank you for choosing to rise. You helped me choose, too. One day, while she was sketching in a cafe, a stranger sat down at the table across from her. He had kind eyes, brown skin, a book in one hand, coffee in the other. He smiled. You look like you draw stories. She blinked, surprised. I do, actually. I'm a writer, he said, holding out his hand. Liam. Madeline hesitated, then shook it. Madeline. They talked for an hour. Then 2. He didn't ask for her number. Just said, I'd love to bump into you again. And that was it. Simple. Uncomplicated. Kind. As he left, she watched him go. No racing heart. No nervous flutters. Just a small voice inside her saying, it's okay to let good things find you again. That night, she lit a candle, sat on her balcony, and whispered into the wind. I'm proud of you, Maddie. You made it through the storm. And for the first time, she believed it. Madeline didn't think about Ethan and Ava as much anymore. Sometimes, when she heard a song they used to sing in the car together, or smelled cologne like his, a memory would rise, uninvited, but harmless. She didn't flinch. She didn't cry. She'd simply take a deep breath, smile to herself, and think, I survived that. But she never expected to actually see him again. It was a Thursday. She had just finished recording a new podcast episode called Loving Yourself After Being Replaced. She treated herself to sushi at her favorite restaurant. The sky was golden from the setting sun, and the air was warm with early spring. She was walking back to her car, scrolling through encouraging DMs from listeners, when she heard a voice. Madeline. She froze. She hadn't heard that voice in months. She turned slowly, and there he was. Ethan. Hair a little longer. Same brown eyes. But something in his face looked tired. Like the charm he used to carry so easily had faded. For a moment, she couldn't speak. Then she said quietly, What are you doing here? I saw you walk by, he said. I wasn't sure it was really you. It is, she said, folding her arms. He looked awkward. Uncertain. Like a boy who knew he wasn't welcome. You look amazing, he said. Different. In a good way. Madeline smiled softly, but it didn't reach her eyes. Yeah. Turns out heartbreak makes a great makeover. Ethan shifted uncomfortably. Can we talk? Just for a minute. Madeline glanced at her watch. I have 5. Not a minute more. They sat on a bench nearby. I messed up, he began, staring at his hands. I know that doesn't even begin to cover it. But I think about you all the time. She didn't answer. He kept going. I miss you, Maddie. I miss us. What we had, it was real. Madeline looked at him, her voice calm. Then why did you throw it away? He swallowed. I don't know. I was stupid. Lost. I thought maybe what Ava and I had was passion. But it wasn't real. Not like what we had. She studied his face. You didn't just hurt me, Ethan. You humiliated me. You broke something that can't be fixed. I know, he whispered. But if there's even a tiny chance. She stood up slowly. There isn't. He looked up, stunned. You had me, she said gently. And I gave you everything. But now, I give that love to myself. He opened his mouth, but she stopped him. I wish you peace, she said, but I don't wish you back into my life. Then she turned and walked away. She didn't look back. She didn't cry. She smiled. Because she realized something. Closure isn't something you get from them. It's something you give yourself. That night, Ava messaged her. I saw your podcast. You're really doing well. I guess. I just wanted to say I'm sorry too. Madeline stared at the message for a long time. Then replied. Thank you. I wish you healing. But we're not friends anymore. That chapter is closed. And just like that, she freed herself. From the pain. From the past. From both of them. Forgiving someone doesn't mean they get to stay. Madeline understood that now. Forgiveness was a gift she gave herself, not a door she opened for anyone else. In therapy the next day, Dr. Clark asked, "How did it feel, seeing him again?" Madeline smiled. "Like I was standing on solid ground, and he was sinking in the mud." Dr. Clark chuckled. "That's powerful." "It was peaceful," Madeline added. "I wasn't angry. I wasn't hurt. I just knew I'd outgrown the pain." The next episode of her podcast went viral. It was called When They Come Back, But You've Moved On. She shared the whole story, how he came back, how Ava reached out, how it no longer shook her. Her voice was steady, warm, empowered. She ended the episode with this: "Sometimes we pray for them to come back, just to prove we were worth keeping. But when you become who you were meant to be, you stop waiting for someone else to validate your worth. You realize the comeback was never theirs. It was always yours." Thousands shared it. Comments poured in. "I needed this today. Thank you. You just described my entire life in one episode. I cried. And now I'm standing taller." Madeline sat in her room, holding her phone to her chest. She whispered, "We're really doing it, huh? Turning pain into purpose." And she smiled, because the girl who once lay crying on the kitchen floor was now lifting others off theirs. One afternoon, while recording, she looked around her apartment. It was filled with light. Plants by the window. Candles burning softly. Her sketches framed on the walls. It didn't look like the place Ethan once lived in. It looked like her. Just hers. She whispered, "Welcome home, Maddie." And for the first time, she believed it completely. Love was no longer a desperate hope for Madeline. It wasn't something she chased, or cried for, or begged to feel again. It had become something quiet, gentle, something that showed up without warning, and without taking more than it gave. It started with Liam. She kept bumping into him, at the cafe, at the bookstore, even at a yoga class she attended on a whim. Each time, he smiled like they were old friends. Not in a flirty way. Just warm. Present. Like he saw her. One day, at the cafe, she finally asked, "Okay, are you following me?" He laughed. "You caught me. I've been tracking your podcast schedule and planning my coffee breaks accordingly." She tilted her head, surprised. "You listen to my podcast?" "I'm a writer. Your episodes are like therapy with poetry." She smiled. "That's the nicest thing anyone's said to me all month." They started meeting for coffee, no labels. Just two people sharing their thoughts. He told her about his past, a divorce 2 years ago, and the pain of losing himself in someone else's shadow. She told him about Ethan. About Ava. About how her heartbreak almost swallowed her whole. "You didn't just survive it," Liam said one day. "You turned it into something beautiful." Madeline looked down, shy. "It didn't feel beautiful at the time." "Roses don't look like much when they're just roots in the dirt," he said. "But they still grow." Weeks turned into months. They took walks by the river, read each other's drafts, ate street food and slow danced in the kitchen. One evening, they sat on her balcony as the city lights blinked below. "I need to say something," Liam said, his voice careful. Madeline turned toward him. "I know I'm not the man who saved you from the fire. You did that on your own. But I'd like to be the one who walks with you now that the ashes are gone." Madeline stared at him, then whispered, "I didn't know love could feel like peace." He reached for her hand. "Now you do." And just like that, love found her again. But this time, it didn't come to rescue her. It came to meet her where she already stood, whole, healed, and already home. 1 year later, Madeline stood behind a podium on a stage lined with flowers. The crowd in front of her was silent, watching. She was the keynote speaker at a women's empowerment summit. Her podcast had grown into a movement. She was now hosting workshops, writing a book, and coaching others through their own heartbreaks. Her life was no longer defined by pain, but by purpose. She looked at the sea of faces, some smiling, some teary-eyed, all listening. She took a deep breath and began. A year ago, I thought my life was over. My best friend and the man I loved betrayed me. I lost myself. I lost my voice. I lost my will to get out of bed. But something happened when I hit rock bottom. I realized that I had two choices: stay broken or start building. And piece by piece, I built. With therapy. With truth. With forgiveness, not for them, but for myself. And today, I stand in front of you not because I won the pain, but because I walked through it. Because I want every woman here to know. The love you're looking for starts with the mirror. You are the home you've been waiting for. The audience erupted in applause. Some stood up. Some wiped tears. And in the far back of the room, she saw them. Ethan. Ava. They weren't together. In fact, they stood apart, looking like two strangers in a place they didn't belong. But they were watching her. Not with arrogance. With awe. And maybe a little regret. Liam joined her backstage afterward and wrapped his arm around her. You were incredible. Madeline leaned against him, smiling. Funny how life works, she whispered. The people who once left me in pieces now have to watch me shine. You're not just shining, Liam said. You're lighting the way. Later that night, she uploaded a final season episode of her podcast. Title: The Day He Chose Her Over Me. Was the day I chose myself. She spoke her truth one last time. They didn't ruin me. They revealed me. I was never nothing. I just hadn't discovered my everything yet. If you're listening to this, heartbroken, eyes swollen, world falling apart, I want you to hear me. You're not unlovable. You're not weak. You are not the betrayal that hurt you. You are the fire that will rise from it. She ended with a soft laugh and said, I'm Madeline Grace. And this was my comeback story. And with that, she closed her laptop, blew out a candle, and stepped onto the balcony. The stars were out. The sky was open. And so was her future. If this story moved you, inspired you, or made you think twice about who you trust, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. And let me know in the comments, have you ever turned betrayal into breakthrough? Your healing might just help someone else.